Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Tales from a Professional Nerd. My name is Bryan CP Steele. I'll be your nerd today. Let's see. I like to start all of these. First off, I hope everybody's Friday the 13th is going well. It is I know it's a superstition, but it's a great time for horror movie fans. A bunch of cable channels run like marathons, and you get to hear all of your great great superstitions come out of the woodwork, and it's just a fun day. For those of us who are big Star Wars fanatics, it is also 1 week before Episode 9, Rise of Skywalker, comes out to hopefully tie a very neat, concise, and non-canon shattering bow on the entire saga. Hopefully they do, JJ did it justice and made 40 years worth of nerddom worth it. So let's just leave it at that. So before we get into the topic at hand, we always take a few minutes out of the podcast, vlog, whatever you want to call this, channel, show, stream of consciousness, whatever. But we get to take the time out of it to talk about my week, the week in Bryan, the life of Bryan. Honestly, it's been a pretty normal week. Playing catch up after the Thanksgiving holiday, still working steady on the Dungeon in a Box stuff, getting prepped because the Dungeon in a Box writers meeting is next week, and although I do not live in California with the rest of the team, I will be there digitally, and that'll be cool. So I'll get a chance to talk to everybody, and we're discussing the direction that things are going. Let's see, what else? So although this is coming out on Friday the 13th, I actually recorded this on the 12th, which is my wife's birthday, which is Natalie's birthday. Yeah, happy birthday, Natalie, yeah! It's, as it is the holidays, and it's, time for giving, time for, thinking about all that kind of stuff. I'm a French laundry trained, chef intern. My first wife was very good in the kitchen. Natalie has a ton of cool tricks that she's shown me. It's palettes. And I watched randomly one of these Something's Burning, and I shared it to my Facebook page and was like, I love this. This is amazing. And it's only, I think it's like 35 or 36 episodes that are on the channel currently. And I burned through them this week. Instead of watching Netflix every day, I had my YouTube running and I was watching Something's Burning. I highly suggest it. Now, keep in mind, it is not kid safe. It's a lot of comedians and actors and actor/comedians that are sitting around the kitchen doing what we do. I love. There's nothing more than what I love is turning on some music and cooking for an hour or two, or if I don't have music and I've got friends over, is doing stuff in the kitchen while they're while we're shooting the shit and talking back and forth. I love it. And this show, Bert is my spirit animal. He embodies so much of, if Bert was a gamer, like a role player or a miniature war gamer or a tabletop board gamer, I think he'd be my best friend. He's amazing. And the fact that he has this kitchen show, I swallowed it up, and I could not get more. I could not get enough, and I hope that they continue filming more. Because when I ran out, I moved over to watching some of the rest of more of this channel, more of this All Things Comedy channel. Bill has a poker table show where it's just four comedians playing, Texas Hold'em around a camera. Not high stakes by any stretch of the imagination. A couple $100 in the pot, and it's them telling stories, and I love it. I would love to be able to Hold'em or play. You have our own version, play like Magic the Gathering or something like that around the table. I think that would be awesome, and if I can ever make something like that happen, I should, because I think it'd be a lot of fun. But enough of me fawning over all things comedy, humor. Please check it out. Check out Something's Burning. Check out Poker Table with Bill Burr. Either way, go over all things comedy. When you're done, so it's always a thing. Kids trying to kill each other, and there's always that. But struck here in the Midwest too hard. Knock on wood. More, and I can use a couple of weeks reprieve from the madness and the worrying and all that. But that we're supposed to find that out tomorrow. So keep your fingers crossed. If I happen to even be on the not so short list, I'm sure I'll probably celebrate and be talking about yay, they looked at my stuff. I don't know. Here's to hoping. It would be awesome. It would be a pretty badass turn of events. But what can you do? If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Then tomorrow night, I actually get to play in some Shadowrun at my friend's house. His game. We are slowly transitioning from the 5th Ed universe to the 6th World, both rule set and universe. We should hopefully finish up a kind of a major plot point tomorrow night, so that'll be cool. Moving on to the next part of the story. And then on Saturday the 14th, at our local store, the Tier 1 Games, I am running a D&D arena event where people can make pre-make a character of a certain level with a certain amount of magic items and experience, and within rules parameters. And they come on out and fight each other until last man standing, and everybody you score points, and the 3 highest points get stuff. So it should be fun. I'm hoping that it has a decent turnout. It should be a lot of fun. I'll probably take a lot of pictures and tell you about how it went down next week if I get an opportunity to maybe like record or interview the winner or something like that. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. I'm excited if it happens on Saturday. And I keep saying if it happens because we don't have that many people RSVP'd so far. And I need a certain number of people before the store will allow us to run it because of price support. So people show up. It'd be awesome. Then on Sunday, moves on into the next week. So, So that's pretty much the life of Bryan at the moment. Nothing. We'll see how the next couple weeks pan out. But let's get to the topic. To this week's topic. Enough about me. Let's talk about me. No, enough about me. Let's talk about the episode. So here we are at episode 34. I thought that it would be cool to talk about as that tomorrow, or rather, if you're watching this on the day that it came out today, is Friday the 13th. About talking about bad guys. Let's talk about playing the villain. So this goes hand in hand with my t-shirt of the week from our sponsor, Armor Class 10 Apparel. So this shirt, Paladins Suck, it's a funny shirt. I got it. I got it kind of hipster ironic because I actually dig Paladins. I think they're fun. I think one of their mechanics is a little broken, but that's neither here nor there. I go with our theme because back in the day, Paladins used to be basically the bane of ever having a society. If the rest of the group are filled with old school paladins or folk heroes, people that are like protect the innocent, let's make sure that we take prisoners all the time. If you played that first character and played him openly, there's going to be conflict almost immediately. That first time that they find you killing the hostages, guess what? There's going to be a giant moment out of game where the plot is irrelevant. We need to discuss old Henrik's actions before we move on. We're a bunch of good guys, and you're over here, cutting sleeping guards' throats. And being a good guy, you are now, or being a player of a good guy, you are now put into a position where, do you go after this other player's character hard? Do you view them as, oh God, there's a spy in our midst, oh God, there's a villain amongst us, a wolf amongst the sheep? Or do you cut them a break because they're a player character and that they're just kind of flexing their creative muscles by trying to play a bad guy? So it's a very tenuous position to be in, especially if you are the player of that less than good character, that villainous character. There are certain games that lend better to it. Certain settings that lend very well to having, I hesitate to say evil characters, just rather I like to say villainous characters, because you could be a lawful neutral character and be truly villainous. So before we get deeper into all that, it's one of the things that I have always said is that, with few exceptions, your best villains are the ones that think that they're doing the right thing, that think that they deserve what they're doing, that the law is wrong, or the heroes, why are they trying to stop me? I'm just trying to fix the world. Like those are some of the best heroes out there. This close to Star Wars, you look at the two big differences between Palpatine and Vader. Both villains. There's no question. But Palpatine is very, he understands the harm that he's causing. He knows he's manipulating millions of people across the galaxy to believe his rhetoric. The difference there is Vader is doing evil things. He's murdering people. He's in episode 3. He by and large, they say that he killed younglings. Not a great terminology, kind of a dumb term, but he killed children, and that's awful. That's like the lowest of the low. But in Anakin's mind, he was, he was caught up in the moment. He's doing the right thing. When he's Vader and he goes after the Jedi in the Jedi Purge, he's not doing it because he's some mustache twirly, I must do it to be evil, join me in evil. It's not that. It's he's doing what he was told that he might be the he was told from a very early age that he could be the chosen one. And if you're the chosen one, obviously what you're doing is the right thing. And what is the chosen one supposed to do? Oh, he's supposed to bring balance back to the Force. Well, if the light and shiny side has hundreds of Jedi and the dark side only has 2 or 3 members, well, guess what? That, as the chosen one, he's got to do his duty and bring those back to balance. That's what he's supposed to do. Thus the Purge, thus Order 66. And he obviously knows what he's doing is probably on the wrong side of things, but there is a reason why they call it the dark side and not the evil side of the Force. light and darkness in and of themselves are just two sides of the same, shadow. Like it's we hear light side, we hear good guys. We hear dark side, we think bad guys. But generally speaking, is from their point of view, let's take the non-canonical view of the Sith, that they absolutely firmly believed that using all sides of the Force, the dark side as well as the light side, gave them all of the power they needed, and it allowed them to rule the galaxy. It was a tool to be ruled, or a tool to be used. And never once did they go, oh well, we're doing this because we're evil. Again, with very few exceptions. Let's go to like Batman villains. Or comic book villains. Most of like Batman's famous villains are either created by happenstance. They're trying to something. They're trying to avenge something or get revenge for something, or sometimes they're just petty crooks. But the big ones, the ones that like stand out, are the ones that think that they're doing the right thing. This week there was on the CW. They started showing the episodes of Crisis on Infinite Earths, which is a great comic book series, and the fact that they're doing it in a handful of shows on CW and they're doing a good job is awesome. But one of the things that Lex Luthor says in that show is that someone says something about, what are you doing? You can be a hero, and Lex just says, I've always been the hero. And it's that sets a truly good villain apart from, oh, I'm being mustache twirly, I'm evil because it says I should be. That's actually one of the things that I think old school cartoons, they just, when you're aiming at young kids and you just want to set up the Decepticons. I mean, deception is in their name. Megatron's just a bad guy. He wants to take over Cybertron. There it is. Cobra Commander and Serpentor and Destro, guess what? They are just terrorists. They're just bad guys. But you look at something like what was I just talking about? You look at somebody like Lex, who thinks that they're doing the right thing. They're going to save the world. They've always been the hero. They're not villains. That's silly. That's just silly talk. But then conversely, you look at Masters of the Universe, one of my favorite cartoons and comics growing up. I wish to this day I had access to it, because I would make the coolest role-playing game out of Masters of the Universe. Heroes of Eternia be so good. Wish you let me have a license, or at least give me a number to try and raise the money for. Sorry, I digress. That in the old school 80s Masters of the Universe, because they were just selling toys, they didn't care about a deeper meaning. So guess what? Skeletor was Skeletor because it was evil. Why did Skeletor want to take over Castle Grayskull? Because he wants the power for himself. Not because he's trying to save the world, or regrow his face, or bring peace and order to Eternia. Nope. It's because he's blue and he's got a skeleton face and he wants to take over. Yeah, He-Man. And I think that the newer ones, I don't know if you followed the new cartoons or some of the comics that came out after or down the way, is they gave Skeletor a little bit more of a background. They gave him more of a story as to why he's got a skull for a face. It wasn't always that way. He had a face. But the reason why he wants the power of Grayskull, why he wants to be able to take over, it's not so much just to take over, it's to punish. It's to punish the King of Eternia. It's to punish the royal court. And he really he feels the only way that he could do that, the only way he could bring them to their knees, is with the full power of this artifact castle. So they give him a little bit of a background, why he gets disfigured. It's basically some magic that backfires on him. And, yeah, he's evil, and there's really no question. But he doesn't see it that way. He doesn't see, oh, I'm doing this because I'm evil. He sees this as, I'm doing this because I need to get revenge on the king and queen. I need to put these Eternians that have been stepping on me and my friends down at Snake Mountain. We need to get our comeuppance. We need to get them, and we need to put them back in their place and show them that just because I'm blue and I got a skull for a face, that I don't deserve to be in the limelight. I don't deserve my official noble rights. And that's a cool twist on a decent villain. You look at let's get another good one. I mean, there are some villains out there, like for instance the Joker. I love him. I think the Joker's a great character, and especially in light of the recent movie, amazing. I actually liked the various versions of the Joker that we have seen on screen. But one of the things with the Joker is that he is evil, and he is dark, and he is doing some horrible stuff, and he knows it. But he is not seeking any kind of higher capacity. He's not trying to rule the world. He's trying to basically not even get revenge. It's just kind of, he is a sociopath. The world is different. The world is weird for him, and he has become obsessed with the bat and obsessed with trying to get the bat to break this sort of tenuous code that he might have. But I digress a little bit about the Joker, because he's not that. I don't think that's the right kind of villain that you would want to play. That you would want to play in a larger role playing atmosphere, because that kind of character is going to be the guy who, by game 3, someone's like, "Hey, he's killing townspeople again. We need to do something." You can play a good villain. I've done it several times, and even make friends with the heroes, and not even make it falsely. Just because you guys have opposing alignments, or just because you have disagreements on a moral level, doesn't mean that you can't be friends. I'm going to get a little weird and deep here for a second. Think about the current political kind of drama that's going around in the U.S. There are a lot of people out there with some pretty strong opinions about this, that, and the other thing. And while some of those opinions are deal breakers, there are some views that you can look at somebody and go, God, I really, really hate that you vote that way, or that you think that's an okay stance to take. But it's not worth me freaking out and losing a friend over. And I think that's one of the best sort of analogies, or kind of the sort of metaphor, or not metaphor, sort of simile that you can have, is if you can be like that, if you can be the politically opposed friends, we get along so long as we don't talk about X, you can openly play a slightly villainous character. And I say slightly. For instance, I'm going to give you a couple of my personal my personal gems from back in the day. One of which I play currently. So I love Werewolf. By the way, big congratulations to Ivan and his team that they are going to get to do Werewolf the Apocalypse 5th Ed. I wanted to be on that project so bad. I petitioned 2 different companies. I sent messages. It was like, hey, please, if you let me in on this project if you can. It didn't happen. It wasn't in the cards. But I have faith that those guys are going to do a great job because I love Werewolf. I had a character in a Werewolf game this is years and years and years ago that was a bad person, like the kind of person that if I knew this guy, we would not be friends. Horrible mouth on him. He, super old, traditional, staunch in his ways. Would much rather, like if the laws say, cut out the tongue of the lying of the lying infidel, then you rip out his tongue. Like that's what you do. You don't talk about it. You don't negotiate. I was a bad guy. I was a horrible warrior first werewolf that was very much used fear and intimidation to get his way even amongst like other werewolves. And I was told several times over that he was one of like several of my fellow players, one of their favorite characters to interact with, not because he was that they agreed with anything he was saying, or not because they wanted to get him over on change his mind and get him over on their side, just because it was such a blast getting into this kind of twisted head of a guy who's very much sitting on the ends justify the means, and my means are to the streets will run with the blood of the non-believers. And he was that kind of character. He was that kind of savage. And getting into conversations with younger werewolves that are like, well, we could, if we sneak around in the city, and my character would be very much along the lines of, no, if you're going into their territory, you grab one of their underlings and you rip off one of his arms, and while he's sitting there bleeding out, he'll tell you everything you need to know. Like he was a villain in the way that it was unrelenting in his violent streak. How if the 7 deadly sins were a thing, he would have been the poster boy for wrath and pride in certain cases. But it's just one of those things where I enjoyed playing him because it did give me an opportunity as a player to sort of cut loose and go, you know what, this is my Incredible Hulk. And if you don't know what I mean by that, so Stan Lee, rest in peace, buddy. He was talking about the origins of the Hulk and how the Hulk represented kind of all of the dark, nasty, untapped rage emotions that he sometimes felt as a person. And Tyrion Foerender, that was the werewolf I'm talking about. Tyrion was my Hulk. He was my blind anger, blind fury. If I wanted to get it off my chest, I could see, I would take a second to think, how would Tyrion handle this situation? And then I would laugh maniacally and move on. So another character I got to play, a different kind of villain. This is my vlog. I can just talk about my characters if I want, and I'm gonna. Maybe it'll inspire somebody out there to play a cool villain. Is a character who didn't start off as a villain. He started off as just kind of a jerk. I played in a D&D game that started out very urban, in a very big metropolis type city, real gutters and sewers and carriages everywhere and festivals in every corner. And I played basically a sewer elf, a street urchin elf that whose name was Cricket. I loved Cricket to death. He was one of my favorite characters I've ever played. But he started off as a pickpocket. He was very much like the Oliver Twist style, except elf and not child. The, you know, wandering into the crowds, stealing what he could, you know, getting by on other people's wares, and initially those first couple of years, or those first couple of months in game, he was a team player. I always made sure that he helped out wherever he could. You know, wouldn't stick his neck out too far for anybody. Did a lot of hiding and a lot of backstabbing of bad guys, a lot of sneak attacks, but was never, you know, never frontline. Never, you know, if there's a big discussion about what we should do, he was going to probably go along for the ride. And I remember a couple of things that stood out on his kind of journey from plucky, annoying, you know, street elf, you know, Cockney street elf, to legitimate kind of anti-hero / villain. In the party with us, there was a mage knight, basically a wizard warrior kind of guy who, in the world that we were playing, was effectively like a noble, you know, like a member of the magic secret police, if you would. And Cricket, as a member of the local kind of pickpocket thieves guild, that put us sort of immediately on the back foot. But as long as I made sure to keep people laughing, you know, tell funny stories, do the occasional silly thing, play the fool, but also be, you know, just stupidly charming to everyone else, even to a certain degree the mage knight guy, that I would get away with it. I would get away with when someone says, "Hey, I need to run down to, you know, go get the horses. I'll take care of it. How much is that going to be? You know, it'll be 5 gold." I don't get down there, and the stable boy, you know, might only charge me 2, and then I just, you know, tip him and then keep the rest. And then when I got back up to, you know, talk to the players or the other players, I would let them know, oh man, you know, it was more expensive than I thought it was going to be. Had to tip the guy, you know, there was no room, you know, just basically lied. Even if I got caught in a lie, like someone would realize that I was lying, I would either just change the subject or laugh it off and then move on. You know, like one of those, well, you know, it wasn't that bad. And then everyone's like, ha ha ha, we caught Cricket. But then they realize, wait. Did we ever get the money back from him? You know, the change that he just took? I guess not. There was an instance where we needed a place to stay, and Cricket lied and said that, well, one of these houses up here in the hill is a family that I've known for a long time. I'll be back down to the inn to let you know where we're gonna be staying. And I just basically passed a note to the dungeon master and was like, hey, this house I'm gonna break in, and whoever's there, I'm gonna make sure that they're, you know, taken care of, you know, tied up, gagged and bound, you know, sleep poisoned or whatever, and I'm gonna hide them upstairs. And then I'm gonna go get the guys and say, hey, you know, found this cool Airbnb that we're gonna get to hang out in. And it was a blast because, of course, you know, they show up there. Oh my god, this is awesome. You know, they go into the kitchen and, you know, the dungeon master tells me, and there's even a pot of stew currently cooking. They let, you know, so I'm like, oh hey guys, dish up. They left us food. You know, my friends knew we were coming. You know, that sort of thing. And then I told him, I was like, you know, hey, nobody go upstairs. They said, you know, the upstairs were off limits. You know, our hospitality only goes so far. And it was fun. It was a blast, you know. And of course, after the game, they're like, you know, did you actually know those people? And I was like, oh, absolutely not. You know, they were the ones that answered the door. You know, that kind of thing. You know, the mage knight guy, I ended up when we were at some building that he decided that he was going to be all haughty-taughty and condemn the building. And so he condemns the building, and he takes out his signet seal ring from the Order of the Dragon, and he presses it into the paper, and leaves behind this giant embossed seal. And as we start, heading up the road, I sent again little post-it note, write down my note, give it to the game master, and I was like, hey, as soon as we're out of sight, I'm going to head back, and I'm snagging that page off the wall, because I'm going to contact my forgery buddies, and we're going to use that wax seal that he just did, so it hasn't been broken, it hasn't been weathered or anything like that, and I'm going to have my forgery buddies make me an exact duplicate of that Order of the Dragon seal, and I'll pay a small fortune for it. That's fine, and it's exactly what I did. And so I ended up with basically a fake version of this real Order's seal. And so part of my particular chaotic villainy is that I would send letters, I would make missives, I would request money and arms, and send false notes to if I knew that there was going to be a pirate ship coming in, I would send these Order of the Dragon Mage Knight dudes to go check out a completely different dock and just seal it, send it. And I remember, so much fun. Because the player who was playing the Mage Knight at the time is one of my best friends. He was so frustrated with all of this. What is going on? There's got to be a traitor in our midst. There's someone within the Order of the Dragon that is trying to destabilize the internal workings of the Order. And oh my gosh, it was such a blast. And then when the game finally came to a close and we were able to sort of reveal, we kind of went around the table revealing, things that other people may or may not know, and we got around to cricket, I was able to spend a good 15 minutes telling them about all of these things that their good buddy Cricket was doing under their noses, behind their backs. Truly, truly a bastard of a character, and still a trusted member of the party, still moving, doing everything I could to help them with their goals, so long as I was still furthering mine kind of as a top priority. One of my favorite characters ever to play. And then very recently I got a chance to play, I'm in the middle of a game right now where I am playing an assassin, a noble assassin, a Yuan Ti, one of the serpent people. I'm a member of nobility, and there is no question I'm playing a bad guy, and they know it. I was assigned to their group basically by higher nobility, just sort of put me in with them and said, almost like they were going to babysit me on this journey, on this adventure. I have since hopefully shown that I'm worth keeping, but there's a black dragonborn in the group that in this world my people are at war with the dragonborn, and so off and on, and so I'm constantly making references to her like she's a second class citizen, like they're not even people. Which I know that is in some games having that kind of racially charged stuff doesn't float real well, but our group tends to be able to handle it. And I make sure that my character's sort of flippant views are exactly that. not a huge topic. We don't go deep into it. I don't get hateful, with hate, talking about the horrible things that we should do to him. Just one of those. There's a lot of times where someone will say, "Oh, well, this character will go do this thing." Well, of course she will. Little jabs, little things like that. Well, the Dragonborn should take first watch. They're built for that. Little things like that. And there's no question that my character, we had an instance where we got to talk to, or I think we're currently still stuck in Ravenloft, where we are discussing what are we going to do about Lord Strahd von Zarevich, and my character is very much about let's write him a letter and tell him sorry we got stuck in your land, but good job being a ruler, and if you ever need any help, if you ever need any assistance on a political level, my people would love to talk to your people. My agents will talk to your agents. And it has created a lot of good role play, which is exactly what I anything that I do, I try to hopefully churn up good role play. But there's no question that if you go round robin to the players, the other characters that are in the party, and I would say 90% of the opinions you're going to get about my character is he's an awful person and I can't wait for us to be done with him. Not that they're like, kill him, I want him dead, anything like that. Just one of those, his views are awful. Every time he opens his mouth, something terrible is going to probably fall out of it. And he is quite obviously he's out this for himself. He's, or his people, which are definitely not for the greater good. And I believe that particular character, my current character's villainy, is based around the idea that this artifact that we're chasing, this the big goal of the game, what the party is after, is something that will help my empire, my people's empire, my not subordinates, the other, I am a subordinate of them, my superior officers, my superiors in the government. If I could hook them up with this artifact, that's awesome. We're going to take a big giant step forward in controlling the continent that we're from, or whatever. Am I the kind of person that will poison the drink of a player character? Probably not. I think that character is a villain insofar that he has villainous ways, and at his core, he is not a good person. But it doesn't mean that when it comes down to battle, or it comes down to one of these, one of his guys requiring some backup, some aid, I'll give him a hand. I'll be in there helping out as much as I can. But know that I'm probably going to bring that up in the future when I mention something horrible, and that character goes, you need to shut up and be like, or maybe next time that you're laying there dying, I'll let the skeleton carve you up. There's different ways of being a good villain without being just a murder hobo within the player characters, or just, I see an opportunity to be evil. Yes. There's so many good things you can do with a darker style of character. And there's even certain games that are better bent towards it. Like I was talking about werewolf, my werewolf character was dark through that sort of unbridled rage. I'll never get better. No one will ever teach me that my way is not the right way type character. But I was talking about Shadowrun earlier. I'm playing Shadowrun later this weekend. Shadowrun is, for the most part, you want to be part of a team, but you can absolutely have some dark people, some pretty immoral, some low morality on some of these guys, because there's no system to force you to stick to a particular morality, but also the Shadowrun world and being a Shadowrunner in and of itself is deceptive and tends to be on the more violent reaction, bloody side when you get found out. That you could quite easily play maybe a bit of a sadist, like you play this character that's, I'm taking jobs to make money and to get by, and that's awesome. But I'm really taking jobs because I like to shoot people. I dig it. And if I don't do it as a Shadowrunner, there's no way I'm going to pass the sight test to become a Lone Star cop. So this is how I get the opportunity to be hot on the trigger. And so that's a way that you could do that with Shadowrun. Or, if you get to a certain point in a game where, you can have a character who has maybe contracted some kind of vampirism or something along those lines that make it much more difficult for them to interact as a person. So at their core, they're a villain, and their main role-playing kind of not the tumultuous, but the what they're dealing with as a character is if they give in to this nature, they will be the villain, no question. But can I fight it? Can I find ways around it? Can I tap all of my medical contacts to just have like a cooler full of fake plasma that it sucks, it tastes horrible, it gets me through the night, without attacking my friends. In the case of a cool D&D character that might, I've only ever had it happen once where I've had a D&D character legitimately get lycanthropy, where they're going to be, when the moon shifts 3 days out of the month, they're going to be a horrible killing machine. And so I spent as much as I could, and resources and all these things to have silver manacles, a valid calendar, this double lock system, or basically a way for me to look at my fellow player characters, the people who I do trust, that I do, and be like, hey, I understand that it might be kind of cool as a player to have this killing machine 3 days out of the month that we can just sort of let loose on the bad guys, but my player does not want to be this evil bloodthirsty monster. So you're going to help me bind him up, chain him up, make thing, and that could be a very cool character concept. Is the guy who is the unwilling villain. I know that if I don't do this right, I'm going to leave just a trail of bodies. Or that wild mage that has no until something really truly happens, truly goes wrong. Man, my nose is just, I'm going to sneeze on camera. Until something truly goes wrong with one of those wild surges, or he casts a spell and oops, I happen to fry a couple of villagers, whoops. They might not realize that they're playing the villain, or to go back to the old school paladins. So when we were writing the Iron Kingdom's role-playing game setting, the War Machine and Hordes narrative setting, we created a type of paladin, a type of Templar that were all lawful neutral. And the reason why they were all lawful neutral is because I actually think that lawful neutral as an alignment is a scarier villain than something like lawful evil. Lawful evil is someone who they have got a bad set of ethics and they're going to follow it. Lawful neutral is, almost like a Judge Dredd. The law is the law, and I'm going to uphold it, good or bad. uglier or clean, emotion has nothing to do with it, and that's scary. And that was what we put in with these paladins, is that these exemplar paladins weren't lawful good, because that would make it very hard for them to do their job. They weren't lawful evil, because that would make them all, these sort of like self-serving death machines that would, having an entire sect of people that are lawful evil, not great. Lawful neutral meant that these guys will do just about anything to keep the letter of their faith, the letter of their laws. And then that gives you an opportunity to shift what they're going to do based on the laws. That makes for a really cool character. It makes for a great. I think lawful neutral is one of my favorite alignments for not being the willing hero, but instead being the kind of character that's probably going to have the conversation of, no, I did it for the greater good. Probably going to have that conversation at least once with a character that's lawful neutral. So talking about villains and kind of finding a way to play them and get them into games, one of the things you do have to be careful, though, is I believe we talked about this way back when we talked about getting a game started, is when you get a role-playing game started, you have to, it's a good idea to have all the players kind of discuss what they're doing, and make sure that the game master is involved, so he knows or she knows, and you guys can kind of all plan things accordingly based off of the story that they want to tell. What ends up happening, though, is if you have somebody who wants to play the villain or play a villainous type character, is when one person does, if they find out openly, or when you're discussing your characters, oh, this is what I'm going to do, generally speaking, you're going to find someone else that wants to do it too. Oh, wait, our game master's letting us play evil characters? Sweet, I wanted to play this orc for a while. Oh, no, he's letting me do this because I've got this really cool idea. Or you end up doing it in secret, and it comes out later, and then you get this cool moment. But there are times where having more than one villain or villainous character in a group is almost too much. Because a lot of times they'll start and try and out-villain each other. Oh, you killed the old man. I burnt down the orphanage. Wait, what? Why? Well, because I'm sinister, and there's paperwork inside that could have led people to us. Whatever. And I think that's why, if you're gonna play the villain, or if you're gonna try to play the villain, work with your DM, work with your game master. Tell them that this is your mindset for this character. Don't surprise them. Don't be like, oh, hey, in 5 sessions into a D&D game, and suddenly you guys finally take your first captive, and in the middle of the night you're like, I cut the captive's throat. Why? Because he's a goblin and I hate all goblins. Be open about your plans with the character. Or if you see a character starting to head toward that path, maybe put a bug in your DM's ear and go, hey, as a side note, I don't know if you noticed, but I'm starting to get a little evil nasty. I'm starting to get a little heavy-handed with my justice. And then they will be able to, take that in consideration should the story continue that way. But yeah, basically, you want to make sure that if you have villainous intent with a character, if you are going to try and put together a person who will get to hang out with the good guys, or the better than you guys, whatever the other player characters, or possibly NPCs that are also these on the good side of the coin, is you have to realize that if you get caught, or if your other players, in some instances, or if your other players get tired of covering for you, or get tired of the fact that you are this way, you might end up being ostracized, kicked out, killed, sold, arrested, whatever, by your fellow players. And that's always got to be something that's in the back of your head, is how are you going to handle that? Are you going to just flee, run away, be like, hey, I've hung out with these guys long enough that I'm not bloodthirsty about them, but if they're trying to stop me from doing my cool stuff, I'm gluing them all in their sleeping bags and I'm running as fast as I can. There's things you can do, and that's where the communication between your dungeon master or your game master and you is really key if you're playing something like that. Especially if it's some of the high-end type things like, oh, hey, I want to play the servant of a dragon. If you're going to be that level of villain, if you're going to go that far, then you have to make sure that you've got your game master not necessarily protecting you, but aware of what you're doing, aware of what might happen, aware that it could lead to player-on-player conflict, which me personally, I hate. I hate players fighting players, because it leaves a tension in the room. Someone's going to end up walking away either hurt or destroyed, and all of these things put together is going to equal a bad evening in game, and that's obviously what we want to avoid. So I think the biggest key to play a good villain, and I rambled a bunch about my characters, but hopefully you learned something about what kind of things that you can do as playing a villainous character, is, I think, make sure your communications are open. Not open for everyone to see, but open with your game master. Be sure to know the extent of your villainous escapades. Are you a member of a greater tribe? Is there the clan? Are you a half orc from a clan of orcs that are just nothing but pillagers? Are you seeking out your orc chieftain because you want to join the tribe? Whatever you got going on, make sure your game master knows. Make sure you've got a firm grasp on it, and you don't start changing things midway to try and suit the current game. And always be ready for the fact that you could push the story, you could push an NPC, or you could push a PC too far with your villainous behaviors. And if that happens, if you want to fight it out, whatever. If you and your opponent are like, there's no way, I'm just turning you into the cops. I'm just going to give you over to the constables. Then maybe you do so and look into how your character can change, or maybe a new character that isn't quite so villainous takes over in that spot, or whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, make sure that everybody's communicating well, because that is key. Even if you're keeping secrets from your other players to make sure that your villainy goes unchecked, still have good communication with them, because your gaming experience, especially if you're playing as the villain or as a villain, may very well detrimentally affect someone else's. And if that's the case, if they literally are not having a good time because of the character that you're playing, you may want to sit down with your dungeon master, your game master, and find a way to exit that character or change it or whatever. Because the last thing you want to do, the whole purpose we play these games, highlight play. The whole reason we play these games is because we want to be entertained, we want to entertain, we want to have a good time. And if playing a villain in your gaming group is going to not help that along, and in fact hinder it, then maybe you should think about trying that out in a different group, or trying a different way, because this might not be the avenue for you at the time. Alright, enough about that. I realized, just look at the clock, we're running a little over. So yeah, basically, get out there, in the comments, tell me about some of your villains, whether it's an NPC that your DM put on there, or you've got a cool character that you've played before that was the mustache twirler under the nose of all the heroes. Tell me your stories. I want to hear them too. Give them to me in the comments. And it's going to be a good weekend. Lots of gaming. Next week, probably some more painting and stuff. We'll talk about that later. But get out there, hero or villain, do your part, have some fun, and play some games. We'll see you later.